I have the Chief Executive Officer of LASMIRA, Funsho Elulade, is here live in the studio. Thank you very much, CEO, for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you really join us. I'm going to start with this. A lot has been, I've gone online, I've done research, I've gone to check a lot about LASMIRA, and I see a lot about infrastructure, a lot about permits, a lot about problems of digging, and a lot of, tell us the mission and vision of this agency. Let's start with that.
Of course, LASMIRA means Lagos State Infrastructure Management Maintenance and Regulatory Agency. So excuse me about that. And the mission and vision is to regulate, most importantly, all the utilities, that are being, in Lagos, people digging, people erecting masts. So we are the only agency saddled with that responsibility for them to comply with, the rules and regulations the Lagos State government has set.
How has it been before now? Because I hear you talking about reviewing these tariffs, and so what's been on ground before this time?
Okay, from inception, mobile phones started in Nigeria 2000, 2001, 2002. That period, there hasn't been any comprehensive rule set. So the government of Lagos State then thought it was important to set up an agency who would oversee, most importantly, the health implication and safety of construction, whilst the sector is developing. And that is why the government then set up LASMIRA to, look after the activities of all these owners and operators of mast and ISPs as at that time. And since that time, LASMIRA has been growing. It has been catching up with the development of, the society. Technology is changing by the day, and LASMIRA is keeping on top because the pioneer GM, laid a very solid foundation, and we are going to build on that foundation. And of course, like the essence of the press conference we held, we are trying to review the tariffs, all the charges and the fees, because since 2004, it hasn't been reviewed. And we felt it is important, not to shortchange government, and everybody pays the necessary and the required dues.
That is really. Now, let's look at the challenges you face now in actualizing your goal. How has it been passing this message to companies, to those doing businesses in this line?
Well, there's an association called ALTIN Association, who looks after all these mast owners and towers. Where you have the big telecommunication companies like the likes of MTN, Glo, Airtel. They've been enjoying that freedom because there hasn't been any enforcement and monitoring per se. So as a result of that, a lot of them get away with whatever they can get away with. But of course, on my assumption as the GM CEO, I identify that there has been a lot of complacency in some of our duties, in discharging our duties. So I've looked into that, and that is what is going to, what led to even thinking of reviewing the existing tariffs. And again, it led to us establishing the monitoring and enforcement unit, which is tagged Operation Eagle Eye, to look after people who contravene, state government laws by digging out of office hours. They don't come for rights of way application, so they know that we are not at work. So they'll quickly dig the ground, bury it before we come back to work on Monday. And as a result, they don't have the required or comprehensive traffic management. They use that to create congestion. That's why you see sometimes in Lagos, you will just find out that what is creating this congestion. You sit in traffic for like 30 minutes by the
Yeah,
time.
when you get there,
Yeah, you get
someone
there.
is just
Someone
digging
is just
something or
digging
something is happening
somewhere.
somewhere.
You know, so it's rampant in Lagos, and all these things. LASMIRA of today is going to curb them.
That's a serious one. You know, you talked about site assessment reports. Can you educate us more on what that implies?
Okay, site assessment report is a report generated prior to you even going to site or even making any application. You know, the issuing agency or authority needs to know the condition of that site, needs to know what's inside the ground, needs to know environmental impact assessment. And in Nigeria of today, about 6 states don't undertake site assessment.
Lagos included.
And Lagos included. Akwa Ibom is on top of the list. They charge minimum 700,000. Minimum 700,000. And these are areas where, you know, there's a shortfall in terms of the revenue being generated in Lagos. And I'll quickly add this. The government did not establish LASMIRA for revenue generation purpose. It is actually for health and safety of the people of Lagos. And in the course of discharging our duties, controlling, regulating, if we have to generate revenue for the government, so be it.
That will be a good one at this time where everybody's looking at other ways of generating revenue. Let's now look at you putting up a platform, because now you have stakeholders here, you have the telco guys here, you have all of the infrastructure guys in, and there needs to be an environment for you guys to come together and let them understand that this is the agenda of the new management, this is where we are headed, we need to do things right properly other than it's been done before. So what are your plans? And looking forward, I think there's also going to be a stakeholders meeting. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, well, the stakeholders meeting is slated for Tuesday, 14th of January, 2020. And of course, we've been sending invitations out to all our stakeholders. And we felt it's just necessary for them to know the agenda of the new management of LASMIRA. For example, we want to automate all our processes. You know, there will be less contact. People don't need to come to our office for permits. Once we receive your correspondence, apply for permits, you will go online. You can even apply online. You can fill the form online. You can pay online. The only time we will have a physical, contact with you is when we undertake joint site inspection, because it is key for us to know that all the things you said you want to do to avoid hazards, that it is correct as per your design. So we need to check all those things. And in addition to that, we need to be sure that all the activities are monitored. I mean, when I say monitored, comprehensive supervision. We need to be sure that all the necessary checks are done. And most importantly, like the site assessment report you have mentioned, everybody that applies for either permit or application for right of way or permit to install, we must undertake site assessment report. They must undertake site assessment, whatever. So, but for me, we will look into so many things, that have not been looked into in the past that allow, people to slip the net. In addition to that, we've established 3 satellite offices.
Yeah, I wanted to say that monitoring Lagos is big. We're talking about 22 million people in this state.
Absolutely.
So how are you going to manage this?
Absolutely. We've established 3 satellite offices, one in Ikorodu, one in Ekpe, and the last one in Badagry. Great. They will cater for all those axes, because you find out that, of course, people use mobile phone there. There's DSTV there. So they are bound to be laying cables, installing towers and masts. So we're taking that into consideration. I mean, we just want to comb the whole of Lagos and make Lagos a better state to live in. At the same time, minding that our stakeholders do business, we as a government must create an enabling environment for them to allow their business to thrive.
I'm going to ask you, because you're talking health, safety, and all of that, really, really important. What would you say about your stakeholders? How are they responding to this even before the conference? How have they been responding to you, maybe coming, letting them understand that we need to at least have meetings, trying to let them understand where you're headed. So how's it been? What's the level of cooperation between you and your stakeholders at the moment?
Well, I will say we have a decent level of cooperation as far as I'm concerned. I've just been in this position roughly like 2 months. So what's happened in the past, I cannot comment on it, but the new management of LASMIRA, we actually want to work hand in hand with all our stakeholders. Everybody knows that you give God's gods, you give Caesar's Caesars. And they have to understand that it's a state that, people comply with laws, yeah? And they too have to be honest. And all the sharp practices, they know that, this period, and at least in my time, all the sharp practices must stop. You understand? And they have to understand that tariff will be increased. Because if I keep saying this, if in 2004, if you have been making X amount and you've been charged so amount, Y amount, and now you are making X raised to power 10, and you still insist that that Y amount should stay, oh, come on, it's unfair on the government. I mean, you have to understand, this is unfair on the government. So everything has to be in consonance with each other. Everything has to match.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Yeah. Look at the inflation 2004 and look at it at this time. 2019. So
it's a different ball game.
It's a different ball game.
You say more of that on Tuesday when we get to Muson, Chief Executive Officer of LASMIRA. I got it right this time.
You got
very
it right
well.
This time.
Thank you very much telling us all about what we should expect moving on with your agency in Lagos. Wish you all the best. Thank you very much for
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.